Hello, and welcome to Shark Cut Up CNC. Today we're going to talk about keep out zones and how to create them. I've got a pine board here that had some knots in it, and I wanted to avoid those knots that are in that common pine board. And they're right about this location here in this area. What I could have done too is I could have taken a picture and imported the image with the knots in it and used it as my background. But rather than going through all that, I just decided to try out these new keep out zones that were put into the last upgrade version of the software. And how you go about that is you measure your board to where the knots are, both in the vertical and horizontal direction. And it gives you about a size of what the knots are. And you can build little rectangles or circles around those items. And you can make those your keep out zones. And I've got them colored red for the layer. It doesn't create a layer. I did that myself. That way I know where they're at and they're not interfering with anything else. They're on their own layer by themselves. But anyway, the icon for the keep out zones is right here. You click on it, excuse me. And of course, they're already made. And what happens is once you make them, it puts little art angle lines in it and they're color coded in red. And that red may be due to the fact of the layer. I haven't actually looked at it that entirely. In fact, let's change that to another color, see if it, no, so it does leave them in red. The angles are arched in red. Now my layer is in green. And I'm going to leave it that way. That way it doesn't confuse with the avoid keep out zones. Well, anyway, if let's say we have uh, another knot right about here, what we would do is we'd measure from the bottom here to about that same location. And let's say, okay, let's see now. Get close on this. There we go. 14.75 in that direction. We click, and now we're going to go from this direction of the board. In fact, it's easier to go from the other side because that's where probably where the datum is. Nope, not necessarily on this one. The datum is centered to the board. Okay, so we'll just click here and measure to right about there. Let's say that's one end of it. And let's say the knot all goes all the way over to, okay, so this is 291 and the other was 1475. So what we can do is we can draw a rectangle. Let's say right about there. And we say apply to that. And now you have just a vector rectangle there. And it's in green. It's on the same layer as my keep out zones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the managing the keep out zones. Make sure this is highlighted or selected. And you notice it changed here to create from the selection. So now I've added another keep out zone. Now you can also avoid certain areas by just drawing curves. For example, here I have a pocket that's drawn to remove some material before I do the work on the rest of the parts here. And these curves are to avoid screw heads that I use to hold the material down to the spoil board. I also have those in the corners here. And the box doesn't go all the way out to the outside. I'm going to have to fix that before I do my final cuts. Of course, it's not really necessary because it's not interfering with any of the parts. So it's not really that big of a deal. But anyway, these curves avoid certain areas. Now, I could have done keep out zones for that. But rather than doing that, I went ahead and just created the box for the rectangle for the pocket with the curves to avoid. And of course, again, you've got to measure where those are on your material board. And I just went always set it up most of the time, as long as no parts are in the area, to the center of the board. So if the board's 48 inches, we go to 24 inches to the center of the board. So there you have it, folks. Avoid keep out zones and also avoiding certain areas using your pocket dimensions to create a curve around the screw heads that are holding down your material board. Thank you for watching Shark Cut Up CNC.